Today, we have an award-winning filmmaker, cinematographer, writer, multidisciplinary in the building. We have Tristan Barrocks.
Alex is a person who is mature enough to identify their emotions and where they are as a human being right now, and that being present. And the culture that we're in right now is not a culture that fosters or rewards people who are present. Follow what I'm saying. For the first time, I didn't know how to talk to God. I was frustrated with him. My wife and I, we were expecting a child. My wife was 4 months pregnant. We lost a child. When we lost the baby, my attention as a husband was to her. 6 to 8 months later, my wife looked at me after she went to therapy and she kind of was getting over the hump, and she said, "Did you ever grieve for our child?" I was like, I never even knew I could.
Now remember, this conversation is a part of our Movember series. We're talking to men about their mental health, the men's health journey. So it's going to be an interesting conversation. Now, honestly, it's someone I look up to, someone that I think is a mover and shaker, and it's a leader in the Canadian art creative society. Tristan, welcome to the show, bro.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate you, Alex.
Most definitely.
That was a great intro. I really appreciate it. Man, I'm on the show again. This is great. It's great. It's
second time. Welcome back.
Yeah, I
bro.
know. It feels good. It feels. This studio is amazing. The setup's great. I'm just really glad and grateful to be here. This is a really important topic. Years ago, I did a Movember partnership and fundraiser because it's really important for men of all shapes and sizes and creeds and backgrounds to take care of their health, their mental, their spiritual, their emotional, and their physical health. And so, just seeing you do what you're doing is really inspiring. And it's always a reminder that as men, we have to hold each other accountable and make sure that we check in on each other.
I appreciate that, man. Yeah. Now, it's a story I've been consistently telling to some of the other guys about my health journey, where I was playing soccer and I was so excited because I hadn't played in like 10 years. And
you had that young man energy. I understand.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I couldn't wait to play. And I played two games in a row. So I mean, like, the Saturday I played, and the Sunday I played. So on the Sunday, I play and I hear a snap when I'm playing. And I'm just like, oh, someone kicked me. I thought someone kicked me. Nobody kicked me. And I just walk it off, and I'm done for the day. And I'm like, all right, let me just go home, drive home on the foot.
Wow.
Walk inside or walk around on it. I'm like, it's okay, it's whatever, Just give it a few days, maybe just walk it off. And I ended up going to the hospital. You know what I had?
What?
A torn Achilles, bro.
I'm telling you, listen, that's an old man injury, okay? That's when your body said, hey, slow your roll. No. As you can see, I'm not going out and trying to dunk over anybody, trying to, the most I'm doing is salsa, okay? I'll take me out salsa and Sinclair, do some stuff like that.
Facts.
But no, I've heard too many horror stories, people going to those different trampoline places, breaking their femurs and all this others. I said, no. I don't want to break. I've never broken a bone in my life. I don't intend to do it now. I'm 42 years old. I'm good.
Yeah.
It's okay. Let me just do my nice little power walking and a little bit of lifting, and I'm good.
Facts. But I say that to say, as men, and I've told the story before, but I think the core of it, though, is that a lot of times we pretend to not be in as much pain or to put off things that we're going through in our lives. Just saying, oh, yeah, it's probably nothing, Or was a time in your life where you were going through something and you were like, just put it off, and then it came back to bite you?
Wow. Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think just to kind of speak to your question and give even more context for the viewers and listeners, I think as men, we are taught to tap into happiness and anger. That's about it. We're very binary, right? Whereas those of the female persuasion are taught to tap into the complexities and the many layers and the breadth and the depth of emotion, right? And here's the funny thing. many of us as men are raised by women who may encourage us not to cry, to toughen up. Maybe we grow up in the hood, grow up in places where we don't have the capacity to show a litany of different emotions. And then in that same life cycle, we meet women who require us and ask us to be soft with them and to go to therapy and to be open. But then sometimes we're also ridiculed for showing that vulnerability. So it's very complex. Like the question you're asking, very complex. I think for me personally, I remember in the fall of 2020, my wife and I, we were expecting a child. My wife was 4 months pregnant. We lost a child. She had a miscarriage. And I really should say we, but because as men, because we don't physically go through it, we think that we weren't a part of that process. And that's what I had to learn was like, immediately when we lost the baby, my attention as a husband was to her and to her affections and her needs and allowing her to get over this very traumatic experience. What I didn't recognize and didn't know was that traumatic experience also happened to me. And so it wasn't until months later, maybe 6 to 8 months later, my wife looked at me after she went to therapy and she kind of was getting over the hump. And she said, "Did you ever grieve for our child?" I was like, I never even knew I could, right? I never knew I could. And that started a journey of like really unpacking like not just the loss of a child, but the subsequent losses of so many other people in my life that I never knew I could grieve for. And I'm a person where it's not hard for me. I can be in church, I can be crying. Like showing emotion is not an issue for me, but really tapping into those deep, girthy sort of moments is something that I had to really work through with a therapist. And so, Alex, when you ask the question, it's like, I don't think that men don't want to intentionally don't want to deal with the issues. It's like, we don't know how. And even if we know how to, we are really great at building caves. We're not great at building community. And so what does that mean? That then becomes a ripple effect, right? Throughout our lives. So then when we get to a place where we really need to talk to somebody, we need to unload or offload some of our emotions. We don't have any outlets because we haven't built community. We can build competition. We can build, again, caves for us to kind of retreat to. But when it comes to community, when it comes to a viable space where we can actually just shed all of the fake veneer of what it means to be a man in this sort of society, we're not really great at that. Yeah.
That's so true. I just joined one community, big shout out to ISI. That was one thing I'm really proud of this year is that I joined a community of men to help share that. And it's rare that we can have those spaces to share. Even online, it's rare to find those spaces where we can share authentically and talk about the ups and downs of things we go through. But firstly, thank you for sharing that. Yeah. I feel like we can help a lot of guys that's going through that. Going off of that point, was there a moment you felt like you, not necessarily were healed, but have had enough processing to continue on and to be able to move forward with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, grief is a very funny thing.
Yeah.
Grief is, my pastor said to me, my father passed away 6 months ago. It'll be 6 months actually on Christmas Eve, or not Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve. And but one of the first things he said to me was that you never really get over like the people you lose, right? You never really get over it. All you can do is kind of pick up the pieces of what's left of who you are, and what's been ripped away, and try to kind of like build a new iteration of yourself and get used to that new iteration. And so when we lost a child, like it didn't just change my wife, it didn't just change me, it changed the dynamics of our family. Right, it changed the dynamics of our marriage. My wife didn't want to have any more children, and I wanted to have more children. But I had to come to grips with like, I was grieving over the loss of a child, but then also the loss of potentially having more children, right? And that is a process in and of itself. And you don't necessarily get over like, you don't get over it from the standpoint of like it not being important to you, but it doesn't bother you as much. It's kind of like when you, like in the physical, when you get like a deep scratch or gash and, you know, from a bike or whatever else, and you get, that gash gets healed, but there's still that scar there, and you still got to take time to kind of rub the scar down, get some Vaseline or get something to lotion out, just to get it to somewhat of a semblance of what your normal skin would have been in that area. And that's really what grieving is, and that's really what healing is. Healing is not completely forgetting about the negative experience. Healing is really being able to look at that negative experience and not have the pain that's connected to that, right? But still be able to extract knowledge.
Yeah.
Right? And that's where wisdom comes in, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, you have the pain, you're dealing with the pain, and through dealing with the pain, you gain data and information, and that data information applied is now wisdom.
Yeah. Going back to the soccer injury, you know, I had to rehab and I had to really go through that healing journey. And now, before I go play any sport, I'm like, let me stretch.
Yeah.
Let me take a good stretch. Let me understand where my leg is. And when I'm running, I'm going to be cognizant of that. But I think the challenge, though, now is knowing to be confident while running enough.
And trusting your body.
And trusting your body.
Right?
You know?
And how much more is that for, you know, a person that had a bad breakup, or that lost his job, or that had to, you know, get out of a ton of debt, you know, like have serious life, lost their house, or, you know, whatever it is, lost their business. You have to go through that significant sort of trial and the trauma of that, but then you also have to go through trusting your instincts again, trusting your why again, finding your mojo, right? I know for myself, when my dad passed away, I was in the house. I was at his house when my dad passed away. He was in the living room. I was in his office, and you know, one of the biggest challenges for me, even now, is like getting over the idea of like should have done something better. I should have known more, right? You go through that sort of blaming yourself, right? Yeah. And I think we all can relate on some level that's not necessarily healthy or productive, right?
At all.
What is healthy and productive is acknowledging that you may feel the way that you feel in this moment, but what are some of the healthy habits, whether it's journaling, whether it's reading, whether it's listening to music, whether it's, you know, playing video games, whether it's playing with your kids or spending time with your spouse or your girlfriend or whoever is a loved one in your life, finding those outlets to channel that energy and channel those feelings, because they're going to come, right? Sure. And so you have to figure that out. But going back to your analogy of soccer, like the soccer injury, like you're physically healed, but the mental doesn't trust the physical yet. Right. And so now you have to reteach yourself, your mind, how to trust your body, which is the craziest thing. Right. But that's how we have to retrain ourselves, you know, our mental to trust our emotions, or trust our heart, or trust our intuition. Right. When we make mistakes or when we're going through something. So, yeah.
You just said a word, bro. I can't even lie. That was a big gem. On your point of dealing with things as they come, I think, too, we're living in a new age of temptation. Yeah. Where I'm finding, especially now as a man in society, it feels like we're being literally extracted. Like, if you look at our content online, the amount of gambling ads we see, our social media literally becoming like a gateway to OnlyFans, the porn, porn addiction is running rampant. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, the amount of avenues we can go through to ruin ourselves is so much stronger than before. Because even for me, as a marketer, I'm looking at podcasts, for example.
Yep.
Can you name a pop-in male podcast that doesn't have gambling ads?
Oh no! I mean, every sports ad, every sports podcast, every male podcast is all gambling. But I think it goes back to this idea that you have to know thyself, right? And you have to know your levers. Like, I know for me, pornography was a big struggle for me for many years, right? And I think many men deal with pornography partially because, and especially in the church, because you grow up in the church and you're supposed to abstain from sex, right? But then you have sexual urges. So how do you get that release? How do you get that outlet? Pornography is the great equalizer.
It's a good gray area.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah, it's a gray area because it's like you're not actually having the sex.
But you are still getting that pleasure release. And this is the thing that I had to realize with any addiction, whether it's a food addiction, whether it's sexual addiction, pornography, whatever, is that the more I focus on not trying to do the thing, the more I end up falling into the thing, right? Like it's like driving. I remember my driving instructor said, like, you don't look at the steering wheel, you look at where you're going on the highway or on the road, and the car will go that direction, right? And I think as men, we have to understand, okay, if we don't want to have, sexual addictions, if we don't want to have, financial failures, right? What are we feeding our eyes? What are we feeling our soul? What are we feeling our hearts and our minds, right? I wake up every day for the last several months. I do journaling. I have books that I'm reading, both for my inner man, but then also for my career as a creative and as a director, right? All of those things matter, right? And I think that intentionality and consistency is something that is really not really rewarded in this culture. And what I mean by that is like being intentionally healthy, both physically but also mentally, is something that like as men we don't necessarily look at as attractive or sexy or appealing, but those are the things that are going to be sustaining us. Those are the things that are going to allow us to get the real goals that we have in mind, right? But to your point, let's say for Instagram, right? I used to be on Instagram quite a bit. My dad passed away, and I was just like, I had enough of social media. Like I come on and jump off, but I allocate like my iPad, which I'm not on all the time, for my social media. So if I need to share something, if I need to pop on, see if somebody's saying something, I go on my iPad. My phone doesn't have social media apps. I think I have LinkedIn. That's it. I don't even have Facebook on there. Why? Because I understand my inclinations and my addictions, right? No. Right. And so to that point, it's like, and I found that my appetite changes, right? And then you go on LinkedIn or not LinkedIn, but Instagram, and you're like, oh, this is all it's about. Okay, I'm good. I don't need to stay on here, right? And so to your point, there are a lot of these vices, but if we extract ourselves from those vices, we are going to kill the urges that will come with those things. Anyway, sorry.
No, that was a beautiful point you touched on. And honestly, I relate to that so much because for me, I grew up a tubby kid, and one thing I learned about myself is that I emotionally eat, and what I had to learn is that for me, I gotta remove the food from the kitchen.
Yep.
Cause when I'm in that zone to eat, bro, ain't nothing stopping me. Nothing is stopping me.
Nothing.
So I had to learn to literally take the food out eat all the food. Eat all of it, all the snacks now. So when it's time, because what it is that it's not just not eating, it's not eating when things are going bad.
Yep. Because it's a spiraling effect.
It's a spiraling effect. So you have to catch yourself when you're spiraling to not do it at all, or not have the option to do it.
But what you're describing though, Alex, is a person who is mature enough to identify their emotions and where they are as a human being right now being present. And the culture that we're in right now is not a culture that fosters or rewards people who are present. Follow what I'm saying. Social media is all instant gratification. Emails, instant gratification. The reason why we have the whole sort of pull down and then it reloads on our social media or on our emails or on any app is because it's that sort of reflux of going to the casinos, right? So all of this is all about being distracted by a whole bunch of things. That's why everybody has podcasts. No Shades podcasts. I love podcasts, but everybody has a podcast. Everybody has something that they're selling you, something that can make your life better, because nobody wants to slow down and just sit in their them. Who are you, right? Who are you? What do you actually want out of your life, right? And when you start actually just silencing your life, the clarity will rise to the surface. It'll be very clear. I don't like the job I'm at. I need to make a change in my health. I need to, move off of this relationship. I need to move towards this relationship. I need to make amends with my parents. A lot of the things that are bubbling under the surface are bubbling under the surface because we are throwing mounds and mounds of distractions on top of it. And so the moment we eradicate the distractions, which is taking time for self, taking time for actually, some people call it meditation, whatever you want to call it. For me, I write, I journal, I pray, I ponder, I think, I cry. Last night I was crying about my father. I missed him. I missed him dearly. And I felt myself in that moment, my feelings in that moment. And I gave myself permission to have that moment so that I can have this moment with you, right? And so it just doesn't bubble up whenever it wants to. And so I say all that to say, at the end of the day, we are an extremely distracted society. Yeah. And because of that distraction, we can't actually acknowledge who we are, what we want, and how we're going to get there.
Yeah. Beautifully said, bro. And to the point of taking time for silence, man, fellas, I want to highly suggest take time for silence, whether it be journaling, like you were saying. Yeah. For me, it's walking. I didn't understand. It wasn't until the pandemic where I started walking and realizing that I needed that to give myself the space to let the things, like you're saying, bubble up. Yeah. That was when I really started identifying that I had a problem with the fact that my dad wasn't in my life, And I started getting the waves. For the first time, I started getting the waves I don't know if you watch Scandal. You see how you used to get her waves? Yeah. She just started crying in the closet for no reason. And all right, we back, And then just come back to it. I found as I was doing walks, I was able to go through my waves. And the year before that, my grandmother had passed. And it wasn't till doing those walks where I could start processing those emotions as it came through, So fellas, take them times. It doesn't need to be journaling. You need to find your own method of going through the silence so you can have those moments bubble up to be able to process that. Also going to come out in other ways.
What I find, so I just took up journaling really this year, seriously. I had, what I started with was a 5-year, 1-day journal, 1-line journal. So you can get it on Amazon. They're like $20. And you basically, it's a 5-year journal, right? And every day you just write a line, a thought, right? And so you go back to that, every year you go back to that, where was I mentally or emotionally at this point in time? And it really is encouraging and inspiring because you see the progression of your life. When my dad passed away, I really had more than just one sentence to say. And I didn't know how to, for the first time, I didn't know how to talk to God because I was frustrated with him, right? And so I wrote. And in writing, it allowed me to release what was in my heart and in my mind instead of clogging up the pores, for lack of a better term. And so I think when you hear journaling, sometimes you think Oprah or Tyler Perry, a very, very
hairy fairy.
Yeah.
A woo.
Yeah, exactly.
Very woo.
Yeah, very woo.
Yeah.
And it's and really what it is just like a lot of times I'm just writing my prayers down. Like I'm writing my prayers, right? Because I a part of it is like I want to document how I'm feeling at this moment in my life. But then another part of it is just like, I need to get it out of me, right? And it's easier for me to just write it. And as I'm writing, there's other things that come. And I don't overthink it. It's like whatever is the first thing on my mind, that's what I'm writing about. And I think that is an important gift that you can give yourself, even if you just do it for the next 90 days, because it allows you to offload. You know, we are infinitely more complex computers, right, than anything else our brains are. But our brains can get overloaded as well, and our emotions can get overloaded. And so having an outlet, a way, a voice note, a text, a Google Doc, whatever, just a way to offload some of our thoughts is really important.
Yeah. I got a visual from a mentor of mine, is that when you have all those things clogging up, it's like having tabs open.
Yeah.
You know? So imagine, when you're on Google Chrome and them tabs just start getting smaller.
Like my wife's computer. And that's why I bought her a new computer. And it's going to be the same thing on that computer too. 1,000 tabs. And I don't know why the computer's not working. It's so slow, honey. Can you help me? No, I can't. Turn off your computer. When's the last time you turn off? I never turn off a computer. Well, that's it.
Yeah, for sure. And when you allow yourself to put it on paper, it allows you to close that tab.
Yeah.
And it's so important. Even as an entrepreneur myself, and my sister, shout out to Crystal in the back, can I testify to this? When I come in every day, I gotta just like write everything down, because it allows me to just get everything out, It allows you to just dump everything out to be able to be, all right, this is what needs to get done. Yep. This can be prioritized, things of that nature. And it gives clarity to where you are. And as a man, clarity feels like power.
Yes. Clarity is power, because then you're not giving control to other people and other things. Yeah. And life is not happening to you, you're happening to life. Right? One of the biggest things that I wanted to do this last year, didn't get to do it, but this year I did it. I bought a calendar, a 1-year calendar for 2026. My wife and I are going through it. We're putting in all the things that we're doing, that we want to do and we're doing. Why, Alex? So that we can say no with confidence. We're not going to work off of other people's schedules. Oh, do you mind coming over? Why don't you do this? No, we're busy. Well, how come you're busy? We already have it scheduled. Too much of our time in our lives are not, I wouldn't say wasted, but are mismanaged or misused because we haven't been intentional about planning our time. And I got that from, there's an entrepreneur on coincidentally on Instagram who does this every year, where he does like a big calendar, and he says like basically every 2 months he does something cool with his kids, and basically he got that from his friend who did it for like 10 years. And he's like, you look back on after 10 years, you have like 60 things or whatever, 60 memories that like are memories that you built with your kids and your family. But if you weren't intentional about it, if it just kind of came up, oh, it's a coupon, Groupon coupon, then you may have 10 of those moments, because we're so lost in the sauce sometimes, right? And creatures of habit. And so I just want to be really intentional. My father, again, I go back to my father again, he just like, his death was kind of like a alarm sounding in my soul, from the standpoint of, you're not here for long. He was 70 and a half. This time last year, he lost a little bit of weight, but he was still healthy. He was still walking. And by the end, he couldn't walk. He could feed himself, but barely. And that was within 12 months. You know what I mean? And so that for me has really kind of like shaken me to the core, to remind me like my time is very finite. So I wanna live life with a certain level of earnesty, passion, intentionality. And I don't have time to honestly to waste with people that I don't want to be around. If I don't want to be around you, I'm not going to be around you anymore. Yeah. Before I used to kind of, I had this desire to be likable and to be that nice guy that everybody wanted to be around. And that doesn't matter. At the end of your life, you're not going to think, oh man, everybody liked me. Yeah. You're gonna think, what's my legacy? What have I built? What have I left for my kids? What do my kids think about me? What does my spouse think about me? You know, did I run and finish my race? You know, that I believe that God put before me. Those are the things you think about. You don't think about, you know, Ernestine at your third job when you work in the bakery, like shift, like nobody cares about, like, and I'm not saying Ernestine probably has a great life, great, but like at the end of your life, you're not going to be thinking about her.
No. And honestly, bro, my condolences to your dad going, bro, because what it does is it brings so much clarity. Mm-hmm. When you go to the funeral and you see the people around, it brings so much clarity to what really matters in life.
Yeah.
You know, I had the same experience when I lost my grandfather last year.
Oh, wow.
You know, last year was a tough year for me, bro. I lost, so within 3 months, I lost an uncle, an aunt, and my grandfather.
Wow.
And it was an intense period. But what I got to see was the impact of community and what legacy looks like. You know, because my grandfather was somebody who was in the community and active. So I got to see what being a community person was, but also what not being a family person was like. You know, because there's sometimes you prioritize the outside layer of the community more than you target your family, you know? So as a father, I would love to ask you, what are some of the things that you're doing? You just mentioned the calendar. What are some of the things that you're doing to preserve that family aspect?
Yeah, I know that's such a great question. I think for me, I try my best to be intentional with each child and then with them collectively. I have a son and a daughter. Up until this year, for the last 4 years, I've done Daddy Daughter Day with my daughter, which I still have a couple more days before this year's up. I got to take her out somewhere, even if it's just for ice cream and a chat. And I started that because I recognized a few years ago that, well, not more than a few years ago, but I really significantly felt the urge as a father to start really defining what that relationship was going to be like with my daughter. And because I am the first man that she's going to love and she's going to have a real, true, deep relationship with, I have to be intentional about that relationship. I have to manage that relationship. And there was, you know, and so because she's obviously not a boy like my son, there are different expressions, there are different notes, there are different needs that she has that I have to tap into, and I have to really tap into my feminine sort of ideals or feelings or the lighter touches of my masculinity in order to be able to reach her, because she's coming with emotion and feelings when my son is coming with you know, facts and experiential, like, you know, my son, he and I can play 2K for 3 hours and that's good for him, right? My daughter wants to talk and she wants me to listen and she wants to, you know, go to the mall and try on things and maybe not buy stuff and maybe buy stuff. And so speaking back to your question, it's, as a man, I have to coordinate with my wife. I have to listen to my wife. One of the best pieces of advice I got from a friend of mine, Raquel Brown, she said, listen, Tristan, listen to your wife, right? You may not understand where she's coming from, but wives have intuition. They can see things that we can't see. And so the moment I start to listen to my wife, really listen to my wife and really like consider her in all decisions, my life has been exponentially easier. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's been easier. And so with that, she'll tap me on the shoulder and be like, hey, you need to check in with this child, or, you know what, maybe, you know, you and I, let's go on a vacay or whatever else. And so there's those touch points that as you're cultivating the relationships and the dynamics, managing the dynamics of your family, you understand how to reach each person. And then also as a collective, what matters to us as a family. And so, you know, next year we're looking at doing at least one large family vacation somewhere outside of North America. My son is auditioning and getting ready for high school. I'm helping him with that. My daughter is into art and started to get her portfolio ready. She's 2 or 3 more years away from being in high school. Those are the things that I'm intentionally kind of focused on. And for my wife and I, we're really excited about sort of like the next iteration of the next 10 years of our life, where we want to move to, you know, what we want to invest in, what are some of the businesses we want to start. And so those are our moments of like clarity and moments of connection that we try to do on a regular basis. But one of the best other pieces of advice that I got from Bishop T.D. Jakes in one of his books was that, like, you're never going to be, you have to get used to sometimes failing as a father, but being a great business person. Meaning,
interesting.
His disposition was, we think that we can be all things to all people all the time, and that's just not realistic. So sometimes I'm a really great dad, but those days I'm a really great dad, I'm probably not a great business partner because I haven't touched the business. I haven't responded to emails because I'm playing 2K with my dad, with my son. The next day, I might be an amazing director because I spent all day directing, but I'm not a great dad because I was supposed to make spaghetti for the kids, and I promised them that. The key to that is that you never want to do that 2 days in a row, right? You always want to, like, when you're living this life, understand that this life is a life of extremes, and especially if you're a high performer, you can't walk around with guilt for wanting to be really dope at something. Like, I want to be a really dope director. That's going to cost something. It's going to cost time with my kids. That's going to cost me being able to be the great dad that I always want to be. But on the flip side, when I get that guap and I make that money, I can fly all of us to Jamaica for Christmas. And then I'm the best dad ever. But then I don't look at a script for a few days and I'm not a great director, right? And so that's what he meant by it. That's the spirit by which he meant by it. And I think that when you give yourself that grace and space and understand that it's extremes, you're no longer thinking in this sort of minute mindset of like, I'm always failing. Like, even when you're doing something great, you're failing in something else. It's like, no, it's not really how it works.
Oof, man, that hits on so many levels because there's always this conversation around balance.
Yeah,
you know,
there's no balance.
There's no balance. It's a constant pendulum.
Yeah. Balance doesn't exist. Anybody that teaches about balance or says there's balance is really telling you that you just want to be average. And if you want to be average, that's cool. There's no shade on that. But the reality is that anybody that is a high performer, anybody that is highly successful, anybody that makes any sort of breakthroughs in medicine or anything, it's always been extremes. It's always been extremes, right? That's why I love watching Spider-Man, right? Spider-Man is like, Peter Parker is like the greatest superhero of New York, but he's a pizza delivery man and he can't pay his rent and he's like sleeping in class, right? It's showing that there's a trade-off for this, right? And so, like, the idea of balance is the idea that you can manage everything properly, but that's not how it works. Like if it was all about balance, I don't think the podcast would be what it is, your podcast, because you got to do this every day. You got to plan every day. You can't be like, oh, well, balance says I only do 1 episode a week and I do it at this time because everything else is feng shui and I need to do my, that's not how life works. If whatever, a billionaire calls you, if 5 minutes from now, you're going to stop this podcast, you're going to interview the billionaire. That's what it is. But that's a part of having a goal and being passionate about something, understanding that the passion is what drives you and what feeds the dream, and ultimately everything will have its moment.
That's so true. And man, I saw a post the other day on having the dog in you. If you have that dog in you, you're not going to have balance. It's just a part of it. And I think the strong part is communicating around the dog.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm going into grind mode for the next week.
Yeah.
So people are cognizant of where you are. I think that's been one of the big lessons I found from the other entrepreneurs I've spoken to, is that they try to communicate that. Otherwise, people are just kind of left in the dark. Like,
absolutely, and I think it's even more so if you're single and you like I'm married, so I have the benefit of like a wife being like, yo, what's good? Like hold me accountable, right? I got kids that are checking in on me like, hey dad, like I right? But if you are like a solo individual, maybe you run a business, blah, 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 like you just answer to yourself, right? And if your friends are just as busy as you could go 4 months, 5 months and without talking to anybody, without doing anything social, without feeding yourself. I remember there was a point in my life where I literally went like probably a year and I didn't talk to any of my core like friends that I grew up with. I just was like locked in. And there was great benefit from that, but then there was also moments where I just felt so alone. I had nobody to talk to. And I didn't necessarily want to just talk to my wife because she didn't understand all the dynamics of it. And some things I needed a male perspective from to bounce the ideas off of. So, there's a trade-off, right? And to your point, you should create the environment where you can communicate that with your loved ones and your friends, because you owe them that. If they mean something to you, you owe them at least an explanation. Be like, hey, this is where I'm at right now.
Mm-hmm. And one place you're at right now is really pushing this film.
Mm-hmm. Sugar Dumpling, yep.
Tell me about Sugar Dumpling, and let's just educate the audience on where you've grown with Sugar Dumpling.
Yeah, so Sugar Dumpling is a short film that stars Oliver Samuels and Chantel Riley. And it follows the story of a young woman trying to reconnect with her estranged father who's dealing with dementia. And the only way that she can reconnect with him is by recreating his Jamaican recipes from his childhood. And this story came about really because my wife and I wanted to create a piece and tell a story that was authentic to our backgrounds, but also allowed us to showcase our skills and our abilities as filmmakers and as producers. And I mean, there's so much to be said, but it's the perfect example of when you just put your hands to the plow and you say, listen, I don't see anything right now, but I'm going to push this thing because I believe in it myself. And then momentum just starts building and people start seeing you, and then everybody starts coming and helping you figure things out. Because I remember when I came with the idea, like a loose idea of like a son trying to reconnect with his father. And I brought it to my wife and she's like, no, you should make it like into like a daughter. And like, the daughter is like, the father calls the daughter Sugar Dumpling or something. And I was like, okay, I can work with that. And honestly, Alex, it was one of those things where it felt like it was this small and every day it kept on growing just because I kept on feeding it and feeding it and feeding it. And so how did I feed it? I fed it by, going into writing programs and developing the story and getting the outline done and developing and getting feedback on the characters. And it started to grow from there. And then sharing the script with people and reaching out to actors, and then other people hearing about it and wanting to be a part of it. And it just grew and grew and grew to the point where we made the thing. And we made it not with public money, not with grant money, not with Arts Council money. We made it with our own money. Right? We put in a significant amount of money into the project to make it happen. And we released it out into the world through film festivals and then screenings. And what we recognized was that we were just stewards of this story. This was not our story. This is the community story. This was, Auntie Bevy's, story. This was Uncle Buck's story. This was, Nancy's story. This was the Asian dude at the corner store story. This was the Indian guy, selling papers on the corner. His story. It was the story of so many immigrant families, and we just so happened to wrap it in the wrapping in the container of West Indian culture. But it was so much more than that. And so it's taken a life of its own. We've been able to build partnerships with organizations like the Alzheimer's Society of Peel, Alzheimer's Society of Ontario. We've learned a lot about dementia and what dementia is and what dementia is not. And it's just been a really beautiful journey.
Man, yeah, it hits home for me too, because, man, I'll never forget the last time my grandmother said my name, and I was like, oh yeah, this is the last time, Dementia is such a huge thing in our community that we don't talk about enough. And it's crazy because you'd feel like, hey, if there's something that we all go through, maybe we should make a film for that, seeing that we all go through that. You know what I'm saying?
The reality is that there's a stigma around it, right? That you obviously know. There's misunderstanding. So the first big piece of it is there's cultural misunderstanding. Automatically, people think that instead of thinking that the person might be sick, because they're fumbling around and not remembering things, we think that they're difficult. We think that they're rude. We think that they're miserable, right? We label them with these things because culturally that's what we do, right? And I'm sure in other cultures they do the same thing. But then the other element to it is the medical element, and this is something that happened with many family members I've known, and even my father, is when it comes to Black pain and Black care, we're not taken as serious as other cultures and other communities. So there's a statistic that you can look it up. People in the Black community get diagnosed with dementia and Alzheimer's 10 years later than any other culture and community, and that's in Canada.
Really?
10 years later. So they're dealing with it for 10 years before they actually get diagnosed. So by the time they get diagnosed, they might be in stage 3 or 4, full blown, right? And by that time, it's super obvious. But there could have been other things to mitigate some of the quality of life. But because we don't know, we lack the knowledge, and then those that do have the knowledge in the medical care industry or space don't always take our red flags as true and serious. We slip through the cracks, A friend said this to me the other day, and I totally agree with it. He said, in Canada, we have an amazing healthcare system. It's well funded. There's a lot of things there, right? But Alex, he said, the things that are available to us are available only if we know what to say and who to say it to and how to access them. So it's not necessarily just about, oh, we don't have enough beds. It's about, I need to know the language and I need to know the ecosystem of the healthcare system, and I'm going to get what I need when I need it. And that's not, I'm taking out, private care and all that stuff. I'm just talking about in the public care system. And I'm not saying that there are broken things about our healthcare system, but comparing it to other systems in the world,
definitely not the U.S.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying, right? Yeah. If you know what to say, how to access it, you will get the care that you need for your loved one. Unfortunately, in our community, we don't know how to do that most of the times. And what's ironic about it is how many Black people we know are nurses and our custodians and our in food in the healthcare system, but we don't necessarily leverage that knowledge.
They kind of keep it as like a black box. That's what you go to do for money. That's not what you can contribute to the community.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. Oh man, there's so much to go on from there. Firstly, I'm being selfish.
Yeah.
I think that's something I actually want to dive deeper into. If you know anybody that can speak to strengthening and widening that time, feel free to reach out. And
absolutely. I mean, there's an amazing young lady by the name of Ngozi. She is one of the senior leaders within the Alzheimer's Society of Ontario. She's phenomenal. She's a phenomenal resource, and she is a part of their DEI leadership team. But then also she's getting her doctorate in dementia and Alzheimer's studies. I think it's that. I mean, she'll correct me. She'll definitely correct me if I'm wrong. But what I will say is that there are advocates that are in spaces that can really speak to it. She actually has a show on Omni right now where it talks about how to, like, all the different iterations of how we can, as a community, strengthen our knowledge and strengthen our resolve in terms of supporting our family members are living with dementia and dementia-related diseases. So I think there are things out there. I think we need to definitely, like you're saying, like, get people like that on spaces like here, because here's what's going to happen. Our generation, and you're probably a generation after me, but we are kind of a sandwich generation, right? We're going to start having kids if we haven't had kids already. And then our parents are going to get older, and our parents are going to they're going to live longer, and they're going to deal with these same ailments. And if we don't have the knowledge, we're going to be the primary caregivers, but do that in ignorance instead of in a place of power and education. And so we need to educate ourselves now so that when that time comes, we're more adequately equipped to do what we need to do.
100%. What was the name one more time?
Ngozi. I can give you her last name off camera.
Big shout out to Ngozi. We definitely got to have you on the show.
Yeah.
Man, I want to keep you longer, but we got to work towards wrapping up.
Yeah. No,
one thing you slightly touched on was the DEI, and I think we talked about this off camera. What has been your experience going for grants, going for partnerships as a Black man?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're in a very unique situation, Alex. I think as a heterosexual Black man living in Canada, trying to live the dream and get partnerships or get grants and other things to that nature, it is a bit challenging because the unwritten rule or the unspoken rule is this idea that, like, a lot of these bodies, these funding bodies, whether it's you're applying to them or it's like different programs, they are looking to kind of, for lack of a better word, check certain boxes, right? And in a lot of ways, like, the only thing that's I guess a little less regular than a white straight male is a Black straight male, right? It's just like, you know what I mean? Like
yeah, it's like, you know what I mean? You're a diet colonizer.
Yeah. We're like diet, whatever, right? And so, but the challenge with that is that just because I'm a straight Black male, it doesn't mean that I'm afforded all the opportunities in the world. Oftentimes I'm afforded less opportunities, and I find that I'm actually less attractive to funders and less attractive to partnerships and less attractive to certain types of programming because I am, a straight Black male, right? And so navigating that space has really been challenging for me because it's like, dude, I've been in this industry for dang near all my life, like 30 years, right? Like the first time I was on a film set was for The Search for Bobby Fischer in 1996 or 7. I was on, not even, probably 93, 94. I was downtown at the old Toronto University of Toronto campus, right? And we were in this big cathedral space and we were playing chess. I was playing chess with my brother. That was my first, I was like 11 years old, right? I say that to say, like, I have experience as an actor for several years. I have at least 20 years as a filmmaker, documentarian, a producer, a writer. And I still can't get funding, right? I still can't get like funding. I've never gotten arts funding ever.
Really?
I've never been the core recipient of any arts funding ever, and I've been an artist all my life. So and I know people will say, well, because you just need to work on your skills as a writer, your skills as a grant writer, blah blah blah. My rebuttal to them is, and this has always been my disposition, is most people that know artists know that the reason why you became an artist is because you're not an academic. But then we use an academic system to rate, gauge, and release funding for artistic endeavors. So we create a barrier to then fund projects and people that are systematically don't have access to funds and capital normally, right? Because nobody is just a business person doesn't always just go and say, hey, make art for art's sake. They want to get their money back. And that's why the arts councils are there. Now, I'm not ragging on the arts council because they've funded some really great stuff, but they've also funded some really crappy stuff. And this is a taboo subject. It's like we always say, well, why is Canadian work, whether it's films or plays or content, why does it look Canadian? Why does it look like that? Why is it not the greatest quality? Well, if you are rewarding people and giving people money, but not teaching them how to fish, how to build an actual ecosystem so that they can now take that $30,000 that you give them, make a film, and then make $60,000 off of it, they are always going to go back to the, for lack of a better term, the breast milk of the government, of the arts councils, and they're never going to learn how to fish and how to cook and how to compete and create work that is worthy of me or you or anybody else watching. So if the point of it is for the work to just exist, then this system works. But then you're telling people, yes, at this level, at the artistic level, the work just needs to exist. But then now when you go into the film and television system, the work can't just exist. It needs to compete with whatever's on Disney Plus and Amazon Prime and blah, blah, blah. But I have 5 different projects where I got funded and nobody cared about the quality because it was just about existing. And then as an artist, if you now get slapped in the face with that reality, you recognize, oh, shoot, maybe I'm not as good as I was. But I was good at grant writing. Right? And I'm not trying to throw shade. I'm just saying, like, I would rather be a not a great grant writer, but be a real dope creative and create a sugar dumpling where people look at it and know that it's undeniably great work and say that we did this, we funded it ourselves, we did it, then do subpar work, but get all the free money in the world. Because that's not going to do anything for me long term. That's just going to feed into the sort of vortex of vanity that we think we're doing something good, but we're not doing anything good. It's like your child coming home and whatever, they have an assignment and you're helping them with assignment and they're doing some work on it and there's spelling mistakes and there's all this stuff and they ask you, oh, daddy, mommy, how does this look? Is this great? And you're like, it's great, Bobby. And then when they they give it to their teacher, the teacher marks it and gives them a D. They come home crying and be like, Mommy, I got a D. And nowadays, parents go back and tell the teacher, no, they should get an A for effort. No, it wasn't good. We are in a really interesting space now where people are getting rewarded for, at least in this country, at times for subpar work. But people who are actually going to have the most success and the longevity are those that understand that you got to meet the moment with excellence, with quality, and not just meet the requirements of getting filling a form out. I don't know if I said that the best way, but you understand the spirit of what I'm trying to say.
No, 100%. Mm-hmm. Honestly, you hit on a good note on this being a Canadian creative, a Canadian entrepreneurial creative, because that's something that definitely comes up where you become a grant business instead of a consumer business. And I think the great equalizer now is just being online.
Yep.
Because before, I think if you would look at some of our programming, do you remember as kids, you'd be scrolling through channels and you like click on a Canadian channel and it's like, what is this?
What is this?
What is going on here? And it was because it was government funded, so the quality wasn't there. But now, because we have to compete online. We have to compete with every creator coming out of the US, every creator coming out of Europe. So it makes you more competitive. But what's going to happen is we're going to have some duds first.
Well, you're going to have some duds, and I think here's the challenge. The challenge is how do you keep Canadian culture Canadian and represented in the art that we create and in the work and the stories that we tell? But how do we create those stories that compete on a global stage with a level of polish that doesn't demean the story that you're trying to tell? And so the reality is that we right now in the industry, we don't know what that looks like. The only thing that we know is that YouTube is it. YouTube is that's where everything's going to land, right? That's the direct to consumer. That's taking out distributors out of the way. And so the great equalizer, like you were saying before, is like, now that I can get direct to the consumer, I have no excuses to create crap, because I now know, based upon views, based upon comments, based upon likes and shares, all that stuff, what my audience wants. And if I know that, and I have the numbers as a creative, I can use that as leverage now to then go to the big wigs, the studios, and whatever else, and then get other deals, additional deals. But I think gone are the days where you could just like do the whole sort of grant, like you could probably do the grant funding thing.
Maybe post on Instagram.
But but now you're just posting on Instagram, and like nobody's watching that stuff. Nobody cares if you got a staff pick on Vimeo. Nobody cares. You know what people care about? People care about, like, listen, our film, it wasn't funded, but guess what? We had several sold out shows. We had like 400 plus people coming to see the show. That's money that we can put right back into our projects. And so that's the way that you build more and you create more.
Man, honestly, you hit the nail on the head. We need to have a way of facilitating the talent. Kind of like the Remix Project, but for creators. Well, Remix Project is for creators. But I think for film, there needs to be like a remix project. Man, honestly, I feel like this is the first conversation where I don't know which clip to take out for socials.
That's funny.
So that's a testament to the quality of this conversation, man. As work was wrapping up, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on, coincidentally, on social, but actually you can check out my work at tristanbarrocks.com. You can hit me up on my YouTube channel, which I'm going to be relaunching, restarting back up in 2026, which I'm really excited about, because I do have a great sort of like cohort of a community of people, about 8,500 strong. And so they've been waiting for me to create new content and share new stories. And so really looking at launching the YouTube channel and building that community out more. And you can go to youtube.com/Tristan Barrocks, where I teach you how to tell stories, but then I'm also going to be sharing some stories as well, doing some short films, doing some experimental stuff, just really trying to up my production in terms of content that I produce. And then lastly, if you ever want to have a coffee or have a chat or, have questions, you can email me at info@tristanbarrocks.com.
Hustle what you can't control. So control your grind. I control your life. I'm Alex.
And I'm Tristan.
That's the show, y'all. Peace.
Peace.
Boom. There you go.
There we go.
Yeah.